Hello, I'm joined today by my guests Paul Jameson and Stuart Ducker from 20EA. How are you doing, guys?
I'm well, thanks, David.
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. Well, you have blown my mind with some fantastic stats in terms of where the future of our instructions are going to come from, and the software that you've got running and that has been tried and tested by many agents now. And it's interesting, Paul and I have previously spoken about the state of the market, and all that we've ever moaned about as agents over the last couple of years is this lack of supply of new properties to the market, and yet there's obviously a huge demand, regardless of whether or not the market starts to harden or conditions become slightly different. We still see on the ground that as agents, whatever supply we get is really being snapped up as soon as it gets to the market, because there is so much pent-up demand over there, and people are literally waiting for stuff. So I don't think we can ever stop our search for the next instruction. And what's really sort of pleasant to hear from your point of view is that you have got an AI platform effectively that is going to be able to predict, or is able to predict with some degree of and then I'm talking a decent degree of accuracy as to who is likely to be selling next. So over to you guys. Tell us how it works.
Okay, well, I think I'll pick that up first. So yeah, we've been at this so we have a product called Forecast, which, as you say, is an AI and machine learning model. And essentially all it does is predicts properties that we think are likely to come to market within the next 2 months. Now, AI as a technology has been around for a number of years, but it's relatively new in the property sector, I'd say. But we've actually been doing this for 5 years. And AI, by its nature, it learns from historical data. So as a business, we've got 15 years of experience collecting property home mover data. And when we're the first to admit, when we first did the model, it wasn't very good. But we're 5 years in now, we're on version 6. And what the model now allows an estate agent to do is you can target just 10% of the properties within your patch or within your town, and that will identify or allow you to communicate to around 62% of all new instructions, which is remarkable. So previously in the olden days, you would have had to kind of blanket drop a whole town to be able to communicate with those, because you wouldn't have a clue which property was likely to come on the market opposed to the others. But we can be a lot more intelligent than that now and actually predict to kind of that degree of accuracy how much to do. The benefit of that obviously is that reduces your kind of marketing spend, and you get a higher return on investment because you're communicating to less people but getting more back. So that in essence is how it works. Why it's so important. So we've analyzed the last 5 years, and we did cover this in our previous webinar, but it's worth revisiting. 87% of all new instructions over the last 5 years come from what we deem off market. So properties that haven't been on the market for the last 5 years.
So what you might also call new to market. It's never been there. It's not something that's been reduced or hanging around with another agent.
Yeah. The other 13% is through agent switches, so that kind of thing, or multi-listings. Now, many agents concentrate on prospects. There's many companies out there, us included, that have prospecting systems where you can target on-market properties, and there's still a market for that, and still agents get great results from that. But actually, the bigger prize is trying to find these properties that aren't already in the market, who haven't already spoken to an agent, and you can get in there first, and you're more likely to win that instruction because they haven't heard from anyone else in your town. And so that really is what we're trying to achieve with Forecast and identify those properties.
I mean, I agree with that. I think my take on that is that the low-hanging fruit that everybody's been going after is by this point rotten. It is stuff that has been reduced because their expectations are unrealistic. It's had a very decent amount of market exposure, so you better be some sort of magician to pull out a buyer out of a hat that hasn't already heard about the property or seen it. And I think that those targeting on market stock that has been reduced and hoping that they'll change agents or hoping that they'll go dual agent, there's still a place for that in the market. But in a hot market where things are moving quickly, there is a sense that whatever is left over and that we're all scrapping around over is almost like a poison chalice. You don't necessarily want it in the first place. And it would be so much more productive as an agent as if I could say to you, give me the other, I'll have the other slice of the pie, please. You know.
Yeah.
And
You're right.
But that's what we do.
That's what you do. Now, Stuart, you are more on the technical side of things, but they've let you out of your darkened technical chamber for the day to talk to us. Well, it's great actually, because we don't always get that perspective, and I like the fact that we're going to. But when we were talking off camera before, you used the phrase that you internally refer to the system as a lead machine.
That's right.
That to me says it all. And you also had a tremendous statistic from one particular client that you're working with. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, I mean, the key question is we can speak about it and say that you can target, the top 10% of properties in your area, and that will deliver you 60% of 62% of new instructions. But actually, the key question is, does it work for agents? And there's one particular agent that we're working with at the minute, one of our largest agents actually, where we're delivering greater than 60% of all of their valuation leads by using this thing we call the lead machine, our forecasting tool effectively. And that includes valuations that they're also getting from portals as well. So it does work, take it from me. And also typical ROIs, you tend to find that people generate at least £20 worth of return for £1 of spend on marketing that you wouldn't have got had you have not done this. And I think like you were saying, David, I did some stats on this just yesterday, and half of properties are selling within 20 days at the minute. So, just targeting on market properties is not the answer anymore. You're just left with people who are not going to instruct with you. And even if they do, you won't be able to sell the property for them because somebody else has already had a go. So off market is definitely the future. And it's what agents need to focus a lot of their marketing budgets on. Now, I guess the other question from my perspective is how it actually works. Now, I'm responsible for a team of 8 data scientists, one of which has got a PhD from Oxford University, for example. So if they explained it to you, you might not be able to understand it. But what we do is we collect data about the people who live in properties, their age, how long have they lived there, what's their lifestyle like, are they in financial stress or are they comfortably off? The property itself, the number of bedrooms, the value, what do the occupants of the property look like, the location of the property, so what's the type of people who live in that area, and also the market activity. We turn that into hundreds and hundreds of variables and effectively point it at this predictive model that learns over time, but crucially from what's happening in the last 2 months. And it tells you who is likely to instruct their property within the next 2 months. And that's key as far as I'm concerned. It's what agents need to know, especially now, with the supply being such a problem.
And a good working example of that actually is, so I joined the business back in October. Now I lived in a 2-bed flat in northeast London. I'd had a baby about 6 months before, so I was living there with my wife. We just had a baby. And as I joined the company and was learning about our forecast model, I was really intrigued to see if I would turn up in the model or my address would. So I looked in the model, and lo and behold, my property address was within the model. And I've subsequently moved into a new house, and that's a good working example. There was 2 of us in a flat that was too small for us. We'd had a baby. We'd lived there 4 years. Now, 4 to 5 years is kind of the most popular time of moving house. Obviously, It happens at any stage, but so when you add that together, that's just 3 of maybe hundreds of variables but they're three quite key ones that would appear in our forecast model. So if my local agents had had this model, which they didn't, they would have sent me a letter and I probably would have instructed them, but I didn't receive anything because none of them were using our tool. So that's the kind of working example of how it works in really simple terms.
Yeah.
But there's lots more to it than
because
that.
you don't need a degree in data science from the University of Oxford in order to sort of predict who exactly is likely to move and what would motivate them to move. It stands to reason that someone of your age in your postcode living in a property that is going to be just big enough for two people, going to start to get crowded once the baby arrives, etc.
Yeah.
Those are the things that drive moves.
And it's stuff estate agents know, but to kind of manually or do that with your whole patch would be an impossible task, really. So what we do is we essentially just automating that for you. So you can decide how often you want to communicate with people within our model. You can decide what kind of communication they have, whether that's a letter, a card, or whether you just download the data and you go and door knock or create your own marketing around it. And essentially we can automate that process for you without you having to kind of learn all that and do all that.
One of the big debates within the prop tech and property industries always been around the ROI that prop tech products deliver to an agent. So is it just efficiency that can't really be gauged in terms of pounds, shillings and pence, or is there actual, are there some variables there that we can actually track and we can trace that, £1 of spend gets you £20 of value? And Stuart, that is a tremendous ROI, isn't it, really, when you're looking at a 20-to-1 model? So typically, what are you saying? That investing in something like forecast will allow you, therefore, to, you're going to be winning a greater percentage of those instructions that are coming to the market, presumably before they've spoken to other agents as well. You're going to be able to get in there a little bit earlier. Yeah,
that's perfectly right. I mean, one of the reasons, what we tend to find, so Paul mentioned earlier on, for example, that 87% of all instructions come from properties which are, not on the market at this moment in time. And actually what you tend to find is for the, for the three online agents with the big TV budgets, it's actually higher than that. It's something like 96, 97%. And traditional agents often struggle to replicate getting to those individual people because they don't, they can't advertise on TV because it's beyond their reach. And this is a perfect way for them to actually, get to those people who are likely to instruct. As Paul said, a good negotiator with their ear to the ground will already know some of the people in their area, but it's practically impossible for them to track 10,000, 15,000 properties in their batch. So what our tool does is it effectively enables you to do that. And as long as you communicate with them, your service offerings, the fact that you are pay on completion, and the fact that you're number one and number two in that area, or you're very experienced in that area, then I think it can only lead to you gaining more instructions from off-market activity.
We talked also about the sort of commercial aspect of this in terms of what the process is and how much of it I need to buy into. If I just wanted the data, I could have the data. If I needed some more help in actually connecting that data to something that reaches the marketplace in the form of a letter campaign or leaflets or postcards, whatever it may be, you've got that functionality as well. But as I understand it, Paul, it starts at £100 a month for 3 postcode areas, effectively, which for a branch is a good starting point, isn't it?
Yeah, we work with we work with everyone between one branch agents or even self-employed models who are starting up on their own, all the way to big corporates who have hundreds of offices. So we kind of cater for everyone, really. But you're right, if you're a small independent branch or corporate branch, it's £100 per month for 3 postcode districts. That's for the forecast data. So for the AI data, you can then choose to download that and do what you want with it. However, we do offer a fully automated fulfillment service. So if you want us to actually kind of automate the campaigns and send out either letters or cards, we can do that from around 40p per card or leaflet. If we do as TwentyEA do a lot more products for agents, which we're not really covering today, but obviously what we do is kind of cover, we offer a whole suite of products for £150 a month for 3 postcode districts, and you'll get 3 more products for that. So sometimes it actually makes more sense to look at our entire product suite, because we actually have a product for we have a product called Insight, which monitors the marketplace and allows you to kind of research how you're performing and that's competitors. We then have our on and off market offerings, which is the lead generation side. We then have a tool called Spotlight, which helps you convert more from valuation to instruction. And so we kind of have the whole journey covered, even though we're just talking about lead generation here. But yeah, it's definitely affordable for most agents. The other point I'd just like to clarify as well, I think, is that this, because there's so many, I think agents get confused, and it's probably because of the suppliers themselves, because we use such different terminology. Yeah. But obviously on and off market gets used a lot, and there's obviously there's other suppliers that will use on and off market. What we're talking about here with our forecast model is different to a lot of other off market models. So other suppliers may have off market solutions, but by off market, it might just mean that the property isn't already on the market, and you can filter by, say, how many bedrooms by how many bedrooms or which postcode district is in. Yeah. So by nature, yes, that is off market targeting, but it's not using any of the AI stuff that we are. It's not looking at the person, the people, the stuff that Stuart's gone through. So it is something we think is unique to us, and we've been doing it 5 years. So it's just, I thought it'd be worth just distinguishing that, not to slag anyone else off, but just to say
well, in many ways the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and you've already stated some statistics today that if you've got one major estate agent, any estate agent, that's able to generate 60% of all their instructions, all their valuations are coming through this tool. I don't know, and let's imagine you've got agents out there that aren't using it and they're still generating a good amount of instructions and valuations. Think about, they're leaving loads on the table that they're not getting access to by using this. So you can't lose. You would have, you would be giving yourself that safety net. And listen, a lot of people are talking about what the market now holds for the UK property market over the next 12 months. And it's likely that we're going to see some further challenges. But I don't believe the challenge around stock or predicting who is going to be a seller is ever going to go away. I think that's where the safe money is. If you want to, who doesn't want to be able to predict who those people are before your competitor does? It is, I'm talking from experience as somebody who goes into a lot of living rooms and has to pitch. And, it's a horrible experience sometimes, because you're up against, in one case, I went to somebody who was really sure I was the agent that they wanted, but they still had to see 7 other people. So, when you're up against a great deal of competition, your chances just on on pure statistics there is gonna get reduced. And I think it's always great to talk to somebody who hasn't yet got around to starting their moving journey, hasn't yet spoken to another agent, because it could be what I like to call an uncontested valuation, because you're walking in, you impress them, you've found them, and they're quite impressed by that as well, because they think, well, if David's using this method to find me, how great is it that he's going to be using that method or similar methods to find buyers, or maybe find my next property, which is a problem that a lot of sellers have. They want to sell, but they're worried about whether they're going to be able to find something. So I think this answers a lot of questions for those kind of people.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sorry,
I was just going to say, we didn't discuss this beforehand, David, but Paul was mentioning other ways to target off market, and one of the most common ones uses 2020 canvassing. So
Yeah.
For me, that's when you agree a sale on a property, you hit 20 properties that way and 20 properties that way, or tell everybody in the road even. We actually measured the performance of that against our forecast tool, and our forecast tool came out 3 times better. Now, I'm not saying people should turn off 2020 canvassing because it's a great way of delivering new instructions. I'm just, stating a fact that last year in 2021, we measured agents doing 2020 canvassing versus forecast, and we delivered 3 times the result, which is just amazing. Which to me just says it all, really.
And I think your point about uncontested valuations, that really is the kind of zenith for an estate. If you're going out to property and they've not spoken to anyone else, then you are going to, by nature, if they're not speaking to anyone else, you will win it. And that's what we're trying to do.
Such a rarity, isn't it?
And the other thing we haven't covered is there's a way you can increase the chance of it being uncontested, and that's by using more of an omni-channel approach, so being a bit more intelligent with your marketing. So as an example, I've got a client at the moment in Southwest London, really good forward-thinking estate agent, who I won't name, but we're kind of concentrating here on direct mail, which does really work. But again, it's not the only channel you can use. So he's using a combination of direct mail with our forecast data to get a letter through the door and he'll send that every month or two. We also can load the data into and target on mobile. So anyone who lives in these addresses that come within our model can see his mobile advert, and it's specifically targeting just these forecast people. He's also doing a monthly email campaign. So we don't have the email for every person due to GDPR, but where we do have opt-in. So nationally, we have email addresses for about 30% of households. So again, if you take an example in his patch, let's say he's targeting 10,000 people, the likelihood is we'll have email addresses for 3,000 of those. So he's doing an email campaign, again, where we can. And he's also considering TV. So we have a relationship with Sky AdSmart, where we're one of their official partners, and you can actually get TV adverts of his agency to this forecast audience. Now, TV is expensive and not going to be available to everyone, but it's a great example of what you can do. Could you imagine living in Southwest London and every day you're seeing this advert on your phone when you're on BBC Good Food? You're watching football and you see his advert on Sky, you're getting a letter through the door and you're getting an email. Yeah. And you're thinking about bringing a property on the market, you've not heard from anyone else, you can see how that's going to work.
Yeah, no, that's superb. And I think the cost of television advertising, although it's probably come down over the years, it's still not cheap. But I think the one thing about it is these days, with the various different distribution channels that they've got and the way that people are accessing and watching TV, i.e. when they want to, on demand, means that you can actually get more of your adverts now targeted to certain sections and certain postcode areas as well. So I think it all ties in together, and it's absolutely superb. And if we ever do crack it and invent a game of prop tech bingo, AI is definitely in there as one of these. A lot of people talk about it, and we sometimes underestimate what it's capable of doing or how it works. But I think some of the best AI products obviously need that time to work in order to learn and to learn from their own mistakes, but also work out actually where it is working.
Future.
It's great to hear that you've got that 5 years of experience, and you're in your 6th sort of iteration of this now, and it's really now gaining some accuracy.
Yeah, we've just launched version 6, so we haven't even had time to review the results of that yet, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be even higher than the 62% we discussed with version 5.
It will be.
There's a team of data analysts that he's not letting out of that room until we've cracked it. Stuart and Paul, thank you very much for taking the time to explain it to us. It sounds absolutely phenomenal. I'd encourage any agent to spend some time talking to you and just to see how they could deploy it in their areas and potentially what they could be adding to their bottom line over time by picking up some instructions that nobody else has even thought of yet. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks for your time, David. Thanks.
No worries.